All right, let's expand this map concept to an entire book. And that's going to be most useful for a script like this, or a lot of scripts you'll want to run the map on the whole book. So we'll have to reconfigure this a bit. So let's first of all, let's add the capacity to process a book. So we're going to say book or doc. So, and we'll start with a book, because a lot of times if you know you're going to process on a book primarily, you'd want to set this up to start with. So we're going to say book equals app active book. And then of course we're going to have to test for it. So we're going to say if book object valid is equal to 1, then we'll go ahead and process the book. And we'll rough this out as we go. And then if there's no active book, then of course we can run it on the active document. So we'll just put an else clause in here. And let's see, let's delete that. And then we'll indent here. So basically we're going to start with a book. If there's no active book, we're going to test for an active document like we did before. And if there's an active document, we'll go ahead and process it. And we can test this to make sure we have this right. Now, let's go back to FrameMaker. And we have an active document. So let's just make sure it runs here on that. So we're going to go ahead and run it. And then we're going to go to our XML file. And there we have it. So we get our map like we did before. But let's expand this to work on the book. So what we want to do is we want to create our map outside of the function where it is now. Let's look at it where it is. So here we have it here inside the process doc function, but we really need to create a map that will encompass the whole book. So let's add a variable here. And then we'll pull this out. We'll cut this to the clipboard. And if we know we have an active document, then we know we need a map. So we'll just paste that in here. And that's where we're going to create our map. And then when we process our document, or however we call these things, we're going to have to pass the map in. So let's see what we're doing in here. So actually we could do most of this right in the function, in the main function. So let's do that. Let's pull this out. Let's cut it, and then we'll actually do it right here. So instead of calling a single function, we'll just call a series of functions in here. And you know, there's more than one way you could do this. And what I'm really illustrating is how we can use the map at the book level. As far as tackling this particular task is not as important. So now what we want to make sure is that this actually works. Let's get rid of this. We won't need this for now. And then again, let's run this on the active document to make sure we've got all the pieces in place here. So I'm saving the changes. I'm going to go quickly back to the map, and I'm going to delete everything, save the changes so we can make sure this works. And actually we'll try it on a different document. We'll just go into one of these other documents, make it active, and we'll run it and we'll see what we get. So we go back here, and this particular document doesn't happen to have any markers or cross-references in it, so all we get is the doc element. But we see that it still works on a single document. So let's go back to our code, and let's see if we can make this work at the book level. So we've added a process book function here. This has some calls to open a document, and then once the document is open, we process the document. Now this is going to take 2 passes through the book, because if you recall, we did a pass through the document to get the document data, and then we made another pass through it to actually get the cross-references. So we'll need to make 2 passes through the book. So what we may do here is we'll pass in the map element, or the map object, which we'll need, and then we'll create a pass so we can decide what to do on each pass. So again, we need this here. Let's just copy this and let's paste it up here. And let's format this a little bit. So we basically need something in here. So we're going to create our map. We're going to save the map when we're done, but we need to process this book. So what we'll do is we'll make two passes through this book. So we will say process book, and then we'll pass in the book object, and then we'll pass in the map object, which we've created, and then we'll tell it what pass we're on. So on the first pass, we'll collect the cross-reference data, and then on the second pass, we will process, the first pass we're picking up the marker data, and on the second pass, we're picking up the cross-reference data. So let's go down here and let's decide what we have to do. So we got rid of our process doc function, and so now we're going to say if pass equals 1, so this would be our first pass, then we're going to do one thing. We're going to pick up the marker data, and then if not, if it's pass 2, which is assumed here, we could put if pass equals 2, but we only have two choices, so we'll just put a comment in here. Pass is equal to 2. Then we're going to call the second function. So let's go up here, and of course we can just grab these. We can say on first pass we're going to get the document data for that particular document. So we'll paste that in here. And then we'll format it. And then on the second pass, we're going to process the cross-references. So we're going to go through every component in the book, get its document data. We're collecting that in the map object. And then on the second pass, we're going to process the cross-references. So now this should pick up everything. Now there's one thing to notice here. In one of our functions, we actually mark whether the document was opened by the script or whether it was already opened. And we don't want to do anything if the script was already opened, then we want to save it and close it. If it wasn't, we don't want to do either one of those, and that's consistent with FrameMaker's normal book behavior. And the reason is because we may want to undo what we did, and if the document's open, we can always either revert to saved, or we can save it or we can close it without saving it. Now in this particular script, since we're just collecting data, we don't need to do a save on it. All we need to do is close it if it was the script that opened it. Now let's see if this actually works. Now one thing will prove this to you is these three documents are open. The script is going to run on the book, but it's not going to close those. It's not going to close them because they're already open. So let's click on the book there and let's run this and see what we get. Okay, so we got an error here, and it says line 13, but it's probably actually line 14 because these are usually one off. And let's see what we have here. Yeah, okay, so we forgot to change the value here, because now what we're doing is we're actually saving the XML file with the book name instead of the doc name, and that doc object doesn't exist until it's created down here, and that's why it gave us an error here. So let's save the changes, let's switch back, clear the console, and let's run it again. Alright, no errors. So if we jump over here to our XML file, we should see now this XML file has the data for the entire book. So there's 3 documents. The third document does have a marker in it. There's a few more documents that don't have anything in it. We get down to this one, and this has a marker and 4 cross-references. Here's another one, and so on. So this is how you would collect data for an entire book.